This is a local authentication and AAA lab. We're going to only have one AAA server, one switch, and first we're going to configure local authentication and then configure the AAA on the switch. So first of all, remember that in order to configure your AAA server, configure the IP address. You can edit this file. And do your mods. I will be using 10.1.1 as the IP address, and my default gateway really doesn't matter, but I'm going to set it to something. So notice that the users that exist in this server are created by default, and I have this. This is the key. This is the key that I'm going to use when configuring this server, and this is the user that I'm going to use, ENS3, with this password. Okay, you can create users here, but I have found that to be a little problematic, so I'm going to go with the defaults. So I'm going to restart this server in order to take the IP address. Now let's configure a local authentication in the switch, and so in the switch, enable host name switch 1 and IP domain.gov. So in order to create a local authentication, you must create your user. So I'm going to use username, admin, and then select an algorithm. These algorithms are new, so this is a good option to create a strong encrypted password and whatever. Now let's configure this the enable password. This password command should not be used at all. Enable password. Never use this command on production networks. I just want to make a point here. If I enter this, I have configured one user and enable password. So let's see how the show run shows up. Okay, notice that this service is not enabled, and this password is plain text. It is wrong, and this password has been encrypted with this method number 9, which is strong. Now let's enter this command, service password encryption. That could help you a little. Let's issue show run again. Now notice that this service is enabled now, and it encrypted your password. So this service will look into your configuration, and if it sees a password that is not encrypted, it will encrypt it with this method, which is not that good because it is breakable. So for starters, never use plain text passwords when configuring your features. So even if we disable it, the password will remain encrypted. So the service is no longer in use, but the password remain encrypted with the same encryption level. So let's configure login local authentication, for instance, and your VTYs 0 to 4 login local, and then we can test it. Let's see what is our IP address. We don't have an IP address, so we can create interface VLAN 1 IP address 10.1.1.2 with the mask address, with the mask, I'm sorry, and our shoot. Then we can probably telnet to ourselves. Then I will be asked for the username that I created locally, which is admin, and the password, whatever. So enable whatever. Notice that the privilege that I enter with is 1. So privilege is 1. What if I want to enter with privilege 15? Then I will have to issue user admin privilege 15. So let's telnet again. Admin whatever. Okay, and now I enter in privilege mode. Okay, now let's configure AAA. The first thing we need for AAA is the command AAA new model. First thing. Next, you have to create your servers. TACAX server. I'm going to create, name it lab, and the address is IPv4 10.1.1.1, and the key, as we saw previously, is GNS3. Now we have to create a group. TACAX plus, I'm going to name it lab. Server name. I could enter several servers within this group, but I only have one. So this is the first command you need. Authentication for the login. Now you can choose to create a named authentication list here, and you will then you could assign that named authentication list to a particular terminal line. If you don't want to do that, you can create just one single list that will apply to all the terminal lines that will abide by AAA. So I will choose default. So this will apply to many terminal lines. And it is called a list because I have to now list a series of authentication methods, so servers or sources of authentication. So I'm going to choose first using this TACAX group, and then if the TACAX servers within this group are not reachable, I will choose to use the local authentication. So let's see where this leaves us. I'm going to telnet to myself. And now I should be able to use TACAX user. Now, notice that I was left here in user accept mode. So what happens if I add another command to grant me authorization to enter privilege mode? So let's enter AAA authorization for the exec mode, default group, TACAX group. Okay. Now I have entered this command that will let me go into exec mode. So let's see if that happens. GNS3. Now notice that I now enter into privilege mode, whereas previously without this command I was entering into this mode. So little big difference. So now let's see one particular parameter that is confusing. I'm going to disable access to the AAA server. Let me check if that is yes, it is in gigabit 00. So let me disable the access to the AAA server for the moment, just to make a point. Okay, the AAA server is no longer available, and I'm going to tell it to myself and see what happens. Okay, it's gonna take more time because it will try to communicate with the AAA server and it will not be able to do so. So remember that I configured authentication to fall back into local authentication. So I'm going to use the local user and the local password, and the authentication was successful, but the authorization failed. So I need add a little bit more config in order to make the authorization work when the AAA server is not running. So I'm going to, for instance, I could use this. There are several ways to do it. Option 1, I could add here the parameter local in order to authorize locally, or I could use this parameter if authenticated. Let's see, I just added this parameter, and now I'm going to tell it to myself. And I will try to use again a local user. And now I can enter into the equipment. So that is why, or that is the reason this parameter exists, if authenticated. Now I'm going to restore the access to the AAA server. No shutdown. And I'm going to set up a capture here just to see what's going on. I have the capture there, and I'm going to configure now accounting. So let's try to make both windows to be seen. Okay, so let's configure accounting. So AAA, I have configured now authentication and authorization. I'm going to configure now accounting, and I'm going to do accounting for the exec. So, and I'm going to enable a stop mode for my group. So this means that I'm going to send information about my session when it starts and when it stops to the accounting server. So let's see if that happens. I'm going to telnet to myself again using DNS3, and notice here in the capture that an authentication session was created, then an authorization one, and then an accounting session. So notice something interesting here, that if I enter into configuration mode, I am not sending that information to the server. That could be interesting. Notice I can configure whatever I want, and that information is not being accounted for. So So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add more configuration for accounting for when I configure something that comes from level 15. So now I have configured accounting in order to inform the server when I change something. So let's see, conft, and at the moment I send conft, an accounting message was sent to the server. So this is more secure than not having it. And something else to talk about is what happens if I do a disable here. If I do a disable and then I issue enable, this password is the local password. It is not the TACACS. It is not a TACACS password. So if I want the TACACS to to provide me the authentication for the enable command, I will need to enter AAA authentication enable. So this will need the TACACS server to have this user. Given I don't have this user in my server, this is not prepared to handle enable passwords. But if you manage to have a AAA that has this user, you will provide the enable password to this user within your TACACS Plus server, and then you could be able to issue this command to enhance the security of your devices. So the enable password should can be managed by the TACACS servers. So let's see how our configuration ended up. Okay, that is the config. This is the configuration that we have so far. AAA commands and the AAA server. So let's do something else. Let's configure the console to use local authentication and ignore the AAA. So we'll have to enter this command, AAA authentication, login, and now we're going to use this option. I'm going to create my own list that will be only local for the console. And this list will include only one member that will be local, that says that whoever will be using this list only will be authenticated using the local authentication database. So let's go to line console 0 and apply it by using login authentication and this text. Okay. So now the console behaves differently than the default configuration. That is the usage of these named authentication lists. So let's test it. I'm going to log into the console again, and I will be asked for a local user and password, which is admin and whatever. Okay, that worked. That's it.